Were you surprised at the impact that this book, Fast Like a Girl, had globally?
It has blown me away. I knew when I wrote the book that I had a formula that worked because I had spent 10 years in my practice using it with women. I'd seen the kind of results like you just read over and over again. Then I took those results and I took them to my YouTube channel and I started teaching it on YouTube. And I don't know if every YouTube creator does this, but I would always ask questions and I would say to people, give me answers as to how this is working for you. And then I had a team of people that went in and gathered those answers. We looked at patterns, and that's how the information in Fast Like a Girl was born. Is it was not just an idea, it wasn't just science, but it was when I wrote it, it was like, oh, we already seen this across hundreds of thousands of women that it's going to work. But you never really know until you put a book like that out into the world how it's all going to unfold and how it's going to be received. In a year and a half, worldwide, 717,000 copies of that book on all styles. That's audio, audible, and ebook and hardcover. The amount of reviews, positive reviews, the amount of DMs we've had. I had to double my staff to be able to answer the DMs. Like, I have actually picked the book up more than 10 times and asked myself, what did I put in there? Like, why is this connecting so much? Because there's something where women just were finally given a tool that worked and it didn't cost money and it didn't take time and it didn't give her power away. And she saw that. And that part blew me away.
Is that why it connects? Because it's not expensive, complicated. It's not something you need a prescription for.
Yeah. Yeah, well, think about it. You go into your doctor's office. You have a long list of symptoms. You give those symptoms over to your doctor. He or she gives you an official title of that symptom. You're like, oh, finally, somebody understands it. And so you go and maybe you take the diagnosis, the prescription, or the treatment. You go fulfill the treatment. Let's say the drug works. You're like, the doctor was amazing. The drug was amazing. There's no empowerment in that at all. Now, if the pill doesn't work, then what ends up happening is you go back to the doctor and you're like, hey, pill didn't work. And the doctor says, okay, well, let's try a different pill. And then you try a different pill. And you do that like 3 or 4 times. And if it still doesn't work, then what happens is now you go to a different doctor. You're like, I got to go to a different doctor. This one's not working. And we keep outsourcing our power, looking for answers. Somebody show me, somebody show me. But with fasting, what happened is we showed this idea of metabolic switching where there's a time to eat and there's a time not to eat. And the longer you spend not eating, the more your body heals itself. And that concept, I think women had never really had grabbed before. And it was a tool that was so available. They could listen to to the podcast we did and apply it like an hour later. And all of a sudden, again, the only person to give credit to is yourself. And so maybe exercise. Exercise would be that tool. What other tools do we have that make you feel that powerful that quickly?
What if someone has never come across the concept of fasting before, which I think is probably quite implausible now, but can you give me the sort of like evolutionary basis for fasting? Why does it help? And where were we told a lie? Like, where did we take a wrong turn in the last 1,000 years, which made us, I don't know, just become really gluttonous and have 5 meals a day and so on?
Well, let's start with what fasting is, and then I'll dive into the lie. I have a lot of thoughts on the lie. If we go back to hunter-gatherer days, one thing that blows me away is that the human body we're living in is literally the same. It's the same as the hunter-gatherers, but what we're sitting in, what we're exposed to, the physical, emotional, chemical stressors that are handed to us every single day is completely like opposite what the hunter and gatherers were doing. So if I go back to the hunter and gatherers, they came out of the cave. They didn't have DoorDash. They didn't have a refrigerator. They didn't know how to get food. They had to go find food. Now, if blood sugar is going down and they've got to go find food and they pass out, 100 yards from the cave, then we wouldn't be sitting here right now. But that didn't happen. What happened is they went out to go hunt, and the longer they were away trying to find food, the more they metabolically switched into this other fuel source called the ketogenic energy system. I like to call it the fat burning system, because what their body did, we were like a hybrid car. The body was like, okay, blood sugar's going down. Okay, time to switch over to our other fuel source. We're going to pop in and start burning fat and make a ketone. And then that ketone went up into their brain, sharpened their focus, and made them even stronger to go find food.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we don't do that. We don't ever lean into this other system that our hunter and gatherer ancestors had to lean into. We don't have, there's so much oversaturation of food and ideas and stimulation coming at us that we never had to, there are like biological processes in our bodies that we're not even accessing anymore, but they exist. I think you and I talked about this last time. In the book, I talk about something called the Thrifty Gene hypothesis. Now, it's a hypothesis. And the idea was the humans that came out of that hunter-gatherer time had a gene that allowed them to switch over into the fat-burning system and make a ketone in the absence of food. And so all of the people that survived that time period, they morphed into what we're looking at as each other right now, because the ones that didn't have that genetic profile didn't live. So they're no longer with us. So now we're sitting with this thrifty gene inside of us, eating all day. And what they believe is happening is that because we're not accessing that gene, that the people that are suffering now is on the opposite, are the ones that are not tapping in to the fat burning system. The ones that are not accessing that are actually killing themselves because they're not in alignment with their own biology.
Kind of have a lot of empathy for them in some respects, because of, it's difficult, isn't it, when we're surrounded by this much free, cheap glucose, sugar, carbohydrates to fight back against the environment you live in.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we're asking people to do. It's like fight their natural urges. Presumably the brain also has a gene which says, listen, if you see sugar, you better grab it and put it in your mouth.
Yep. And there's some microbes doing that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. There can be fungus in your gut that tells your taste buds, hey, I need more sugar because I got to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
Our taste buds have been completely hijacked by all the chemicals poured onto our food. So we get so much dopamine now from food that sometimes all we have to do is walk into a grocery store and look at our favorite food and see it in the aisle. We haven't even picked it up, put it in the basket. We're like, ooh, that potato chip. I love that potato chip. And that's creating a dopamine response in our brain because our brain knows when I eat that, I get dopamine.
And what is the lie then? We talked about the lie that's been told to people about the food environment, about 5 meals a day, etc. What is that lie and why were we told the lie?
The biggest lie is that all food is safe. Not all food is safe. And a part of that lie is I can walk into my grocery store and it's already been vetted for my health. Now, I can tell you in America, that's not the case. We have a category of food called GRAS, generally recognized as safe in our country. And basically what the FDA can do is the FDA can put chemicals under this category when it hasn't been scientifically proven to be safe. They can repackage them and put them in this category of generally recognized as safe. The idea is that we have a innocent until proven guilty philosophy around food. And it's even gone even further where within their own administration in the FDA, people are saying that the F is silent. They don't care about the food. And then if you go even further and you think about it, how do we have food and drug together in the same administration? If we really cared about food, we would actually pull it out separate and we would have a bigger, better analysis of food. So the lie is that all food is safe. That's not true at all. There are foods that are medicine, and there are foods that will build disease. And just because we call them both food doesn't mean they're safe. You have to know the difference.
Okay, check this out. I have a free fasting guide for you all. It's free, and it's going to teach you all the basics of fasting. It's going to teach you how to kill hunger when you fast, which is really cool, and it's going to show you how to break your fast, among many other things. All you got to do is click on this link right here and enjoy.
How do we know the difference?
Well, the first thing is learn to read an ingredient label. So, do you know how to read an ingredient label?
I would say no.
So the first thing I do on anything that's packaged is I go straight to the ingredients. And this is so easy. All you've got to do is look at those ingredients and ask yourself, do I know every single one of those ingredients? And if you don't, entertain yourself and go look them up. I actually did this with my nephew years ago. He brought me some frozen waffles and he's like, hey, what do you think? Are these safe? And I said, read them out loud to me. And he started to read them out loud. He was like 14 years old at the time. He started to and he couldn't get through, like the third ingredient in was a chemical. And he's like, I don't know how to pronounce this. I said, go look it up. I want you to Google it and look it up and tell me what it is. And he came back and he's like, wait a second. What I just found is that's a cancer-causing chemical. I said, yeah, you're right. It is. That's what's happening, is that these chemicals are allowed in our food that promote disease. And so then once you have that idea and you know the ingredients are the most important and you follow, is it a chemical? Is it a real food? Then the next thing you can do is really stay away from anything with an ingredient label. Like when you go into a grocery store, walk around the outside. Don't go into those middle aisles. Go to the refrigerated sections. Go to the fresh food. If it doesn't have a label, it means it's authentic self. So they didn't denature it. They didn't change it. It came from the earth or it came from an animal, whatever your ethos is around there. But it wasn't put into an altered state. Because what they do is they put these things into altered states so that they taste better and they hijack your taste buds so you'll come back for more. Or they put it into an altered state so that it can last longer on the shelf. And if it lasts longer on the shelf, that chemical's lasting longer in you.
The lie around frequency of eating. Because, when I grew up, I breakfast, lunch, you might have something, a couple of snacks, and then have dinner. And then you wake up the next day and go through the same routine of just basically eating every waking hour of the day that you can and snacking in between. Who told us this lie? And is it a lie? Because it kind of seems to be the antithesis of fasting.
Yep. Well, from what I can find, and I'm sure there's lots of ways we've perpetuated this lie, but breakfast is the most important meal of the day was a ad slogan for Kellogg's Corn Flakes back in the 70s. So back in 1970, they had a hot new cereal, and the ad was, eat it, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Here we are in 2024, and people are still perpetuating that ad slogan. So I've actually looked into the research on, if I eat more, will it speed up my metabolism? From what I can tell from the research, I can't find that. Now, let's say we just leave the research out of it. I would like to meet a human that has eaten 6 meals a day and found that was a metabolism stimulator. I don't know very many people that say that. So it's like a cultural lie that just got sort of passed down. And what happened when the fasting research came out, now, people like Walter Longo, people like Sachin Panda, like big fasting researchers, what they figured out was, oh, wait, if we compress our eating into a certain time period like our ancestors did, and we left longer for fasting, there's something magical going on here. And those were the giants that started to show us that actually time-restricted eating is the most important thing that we can be doing when it comes to food.
What about calorie-restricted eating? And is that the same thing?
No. Thank you for asking that. So let's talk about both of them in an everyday kind of scenario. So in time restriction, you are saying, I have a certain time in my 24 hours where I eat, I compress my eating window, and then I have a time where I'm fasting. So I have an eating window and I have a fasting window. Okay, and I get to decide how compressed that eating window is and how long that fasting window is. The longer you go in the fasting window, what you're doing is you're turning on these different healing mechanisms. And that is independent of calories coming in or not coming in. That is dependent on nutrients not coming in. That is dependent on glucose going down and switching over to burning fat so you make a ketone. That has nothing to do with calories. When you come over to calorie restriction, you're saying, I'm going to have X amount of calories a day. I'm going to output X amount of calories, and I'm going to do that all day long. So very different philosophies to me. Like you're creating a internal mechanism with time restriction that is going to stimulate a healing process. And it's nutrient deficiency along with glucose drop. It doesn't have to do with calories.
Okay, have you been watching my videos and you're like, I don't know how to put this stuff all together? You might need my fasting lifestyle free course. I'll teach you exactly how to do it. Just click on the link above, it'll take it to you, and it's absolutely free. My gift to you.
Can you explain in detail, please, the metabolic switch? What does that mean? Why it's like you said that it's like an epidemic?
Yeah. So people should know that you have two metabolisms.
All right.
One I call sugar burner metabolism, and the other is fat burner. So when you eat, you stimulate the sugar burner system. When you are dieting, you are still only working from the sugar burner system. When you're counting calories, only working from the sugar burner system. But the fat burner system can only, there are other ways to activate it, but the main way to activate it is the absence of food. And you need to go at least, like we talked about, 12 hours without food. 12 hours after you eat your last meal, your body comes over to the fat burner system and it starts to burn fat for energy, and it makes a ketone. So in the book, I put a whole chapter. This was like a really important chapter for me, that the secret key to weight loss is not manipulating the sugar burner system. The key to weight loss is metabolically switching in and out of these two systems.
And between foods as well?
And foods. And here's why you want to vary foods, because you have trillions of microbes in your gut. And so you want to make sure you feed them all. So yeah.
So basically, you shouldn't do everything every day, the same things.
Bingo.
Besides sleep.
That's right. Right. I mean, sleep, there's a few circadian rhythm things. Sleep is one of them that are best done every day.
I know you're struggling to lose weight. It may be your fasting length. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the perfect fasting length to unstick weight loss. In fact, it's such an incredible tool for weight loss. I think you should start with fasting before you change your food to be able to get into that door in for losing weight.